What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about what the Jets need to be looking for at the trade deadline to be making a strong push forward here into the playoffs. As I make this video, it is February 1st and the Jets don't play for 11 days. All-Star Weekend is this weekend, so I wanted to put out this video now, and we're definitely going to be talking more trade deadline stuff going forward here. But for today, I want to outline what the Jets need to acquire and maybe who could be a fit for that. So in this video today, I'm going to be highlighting 3 positional needs that I think the Jets should upgrade before heading out into the playoffs past the deadline. After we highlight that position, we are going to look at who could fill that spot and maybe a feasible price for some of these players. So without further ado, let's get on into this one. So to start, we're going to start off with the painfully obvious one, the top 6 forward spot. I do think that the Jets need to add a top 6 forward into their top 6, and preferably a winger. And there is one guy that I've talked about probably for maybe 2-3 weeks now. It's Timo Meier. This guy is fantastic. He's being heavily shopped right now by the San Jose Sharks, and he is a guy that's going to, kind of bring in a Horvat-like package. In the Horvat deal, he was traded for Anthony Beauvillier, a first-round pick, and Aatu Ratti. So essentially, a first-round pick, a younger roster player, and a pretty good prospect. So according to the fourth period, it does seem that the Jets are tied to Timo Meier. It's not just speculation or hopes at this point. It does appear that the Jets have, at the very least, called and, kind of seen what the situation is there, and they are interested. And based on what Kevin Cheveldayoff said earlier in his mid-season press conference, that he wants to make a big move, but the big move has to be there, right? So if an opportunity arises, you obviously try to take that opportunity. And I do believe that there is an opportunity there with Timo Meier for a number of reasons. One, he's insane. That guy is fantastic for the Sharks and would be a massive upgrade to the Jets' top 6. The biggest upgrade that I could see this team making at the trade deadline and going forward. I think that would boost their odds of, making a deep cup run by a landslide. And the second reason is the Jets have the money to extend him long-term with $8.5 to $9 million, whatever it is that he wants for 7-8 years. The Jets can do that. So if he wants to do that, team up with his old pal Nick Ehlers and spend the next 8 years here in Winnipeg, I'd be so down for that. I love Timo Meier, but I think it really does hinge on that. Would he sign here long-term? And I do think there is a chance. We'll see, obviously, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And one team that I thought would have a pretty good chance at Timo Meier was the New Jersey Devils. According to Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts, I believe it was the written portion, not the podcast, he was saying that the Devils seem to be a good fit for him. However, they don't seem crazy about, signing him long-term with Jesper Bratt not having a contract yet and them wanting to keep Jack Hughes in the low $8 million range. I don't know how they're going to do that for both of those players. I think Jack Hughes might get 9 or north of 9, and I think they're worried that they'll have to pick between Bratt or, Jack Hughes. They don't want to lose those 2 core guys. So that does make sense for New Jersey. I understand why they maybe don't want to make that move. So that really puts Winnipeg in an interesting spot. If Timo Meier is willing to sign here long-term, I think that he'd be a fantastic addition. We will see what happens going forward. Another guy that I think could be a possibility for the top 6 is a guy like Sam Reinhart. Now, the Florida Panthers are going to have to be making a move with Anthony Duclair coming off of LTIR very soon. Sam Reinhart and Sam Bennett are 2 guys that have been reported as, likely going to be moved. Patrick Hornquist won't be moved because apparently they made a promise that they wouldn't get rid of him. I can't believe that. I touched on that on a video months ago already, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, no, it does seem like Reinhart or Sam Bennett are going to be moved from the Florida Panthers to create space for Anthony Duclair, as it does appear they want to keep Anthony Duclair, which makes sense. He's a very good hockey player. But I would be crazy about Sam Reinhart if he were to join the Winnipeg Jets. He is a player that I think would fit really well in this top 6 and make a pretty considerable, impact on this team. He's a pretty quick skater. He's a guy that can play center and wing. He has played 52 games for the Panthers this year and has 39 points, 17 goals, 22 assists. I would imagine that if he were on the Jets, he would probably sneak into, one of the top 2 lines. I don't see him as a third liner. He is a very offensively skilled guy, pretty good playmaker, and I think could fit really well with a Mark Scheifele and a Nick Ehlers maybe, or maybe with a Kyle Connor, with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Who knows what the Jets would do at that point, but yeah, I really do like Sam Reinhart. Been a fan of him since I was little. I do believe that his market would be quite considerably less than what a Timo Meier would cost. However, However, I do think that it would still garner maybe a first-round pick and maybe a prospect in there too. We'll have to see what happens going forward, but watch out for that. That trade might happen sooner rather than later, just with Duclair coming off LTIR. But as of right now, those are the two big swings that I could see the Jets making in the top 6. Now we're going to move on to the second positional need that I think the Jets need to address, and that is a third-line center. Don't get me wrong, Adam Lowry is a great player. However, in the playoffs, I don't think that Adam Lowry is the 3C. I think that you'd be much better off trying to build a proper top 9. The Jets right now have a top 6 that can score, but their depth is very, I don't know, it's just not good. I don't want to call it slim, but in the playoffs, I really don't want Carson Kuhlman on the third line. I don't think the Jets get very far if they are going, with a Morgan Barron, with a Carson Kuhlman, and an Adam Lowry on your third line. I understand that Bones runs a shutdown line, but if Bones has Adam Lowry on the fourth line with a guy and a guy, I think that's an elite fourth line, and they are going to be more than likely the wet blanket that tries to take on other teams' best. And I do think that that is the route that the Jets should be going and trying to build a top 9 that can score. So at center, I do think that there are a lot of options. I'm going to talk about 3 that I think are pretty intriguing. We're going to start off with the obvious one that's kind of made headlines the last couple of days, and that's been Max Domi. He's just one of those guys that is very, he's a pest out there. He's annoying to play against. I don't really love Max Domi just for that reason. He's kind of just annoyed me in the past, but hey, on my team, I'll take him. Just like his dad, Ty, former Winnipeg Jet in the Jets 1.0 days. I don't think he'd be a bad ad. I think that he can score. His defense has been suspect this season. However, we've got Rick Bowness on the team. If he can teach Mark Scheifele how to play defense, he can teach anyone how to play defense. So I wouldn't be opposed to Max Domi, assuming that the return would likely be like a third and maybe a low-end prospect. So Max Domi is one, having a really good year offensively as well. Flash the numbers up on the screen there for you guys. But another guy that I've seen talked about quite a bit, and one that I'm not completely sold on, is Jonathan Toews. He does carry a $10 million cap hit, which, with cap gymnastics can be taken down a bit if you retain half the salary from Chicago, and then if you make it a 3-team deal, if you get Arizona or a team like that to retain half, or the Ducks even, I don't know, retain half that salary, it would only be $2.5 million on the cap hit, which isn't the worst when you're talking about a guy like Jonathan Toews, but if you're looking at it, it's probably going to cost you a second or a third, which is relatively low, but then you have to give up likely a fifth or a fourth or some kind of player to the team that's retaining more salary with Arizona, and it just gets complicated from there. So would you be better off trading for Jonathan Toews that was really good maybe 5 to 7 years ago, or do you want to go after a younger maybe guy that is still in his prime-ish and can still score at a relatively fast rate and win faceoffs? In a guy like Max Domi, in this situation, I think I'd rather Max Domi if I'm picking between the two. I know that was probably long-winded and didn't make a ton of sense, but basically what I'm saying is Jonathan Toews' best years are behind him, and I'm not sure if we want him on the third line. I get he's from Winnipeg. I know this storyline is fun. However, I don't think that that is the route that the Jets are going to go down ultimately. But moving on to the last third-line center that I could see, maybe coming to Winnipeg is Ryan O'Reilly. O'Reilly's cap hit would have to be cut in half, I'm assuming, and he would probably be more expensive than Toews and Max Domi. However, the reason I'm talking about him is because he really fits the Rick Bowness, model, right? When you think of Rick Bowness, you think of really responsible players in the forward core, right? So you think of guys like Adam Lowry, which Bones loves. Rick Bowness loves Adam Lowry, right? Because he's responsible defensively and he can chip in offensively. And Ryan O'Reilly has been one of the better two-way centers for the majority of his career. I don't think he's like an elite player or anything at this point, but he is still a really impactful player that I think can clean up, defensive problems on that third line, but can still add some secondary offense if healthy. I do view Ryan O'Reilly as a third line center, not a top 6 forward, because this year he has battled injury and it does appear that he has regressed a little bit from, maybe a couple years ago. This season he's got 10 goals, 6 assists, 416 points in 37 games, so he really has been hurt for the, maybe half the season. So it obviously hasn't been like a fantastic year for O'Reilly. However, I do see him as a pretty good fit with Rick Bowness, and I wonder if he would flourish more under Bones' systems. So we will have to see going forward if Ryan O'Reilly surfaces as a potential fit with Winnipeg. However, I really don't see this one happening. I just wanted to bring it up just in case. And now we are going to go to the last positional need that I think the Jets really need to focus on, and that is, just a bottom six winger or bottom six wingers. There are a ton of guys that are available right now, and too many to count, so I'm only going to name a few. I'm going to start off with Nick Ritchie. This isn't a guy that I'm necessarily, totally stoked over, but he's a guy that I think is better than the majority of the bottom six that the Jets have right now. It has been rumored that the Jets have kicked tires at least, or have been interested in Nick Ritchie. Nick Ritchie this season has 9 goals and 12 assists in 47 games played, so definitely not a guy to sleep on or anything. I'm just not super crazy about him. He doesn't play a ton of defense, which I don't think that Bones is going to like very well. He is a bigger guy, though, that does bring some sandpaper into the lineup, so a guy that you probably wouldn't mind having in the playoffs. However, if Nick Ritchie costs anything more than a third-round pick, I don't think that this is worth it at all. If you have to give up more than that, just not a guy that I think is super valuable, and I think you can acquire bottom sixers for a lot less than that. A guy that I think is going to be pretty cheap at the deadline is Jesse Puljujarvi. I think that he gets moved well before the deadline. I think he could even get traded this week. It is just, a cap thing with Edmonton. They're probably going to have to get rid of him sooner rather than later, but he's a guy that's just had a really tough year this year. Hasn't lived up to the number 4 overall projection, when he was drafted. Hasn't lived up to the standards, right, that you'd expect from a 4th overall pick. However, I do think that he is a good player. He may not be incredible, top 6 or first line guy that maybe Edmonton thought they were getting in him. However, I do think that he is still going to be a very good middle 6, bottom 6 guy that is big. He can skate. He's a really good skater. That's a really underrated, part of Jesse Puljujarvi's game. But when he's playing with confidence, he's a pretty good playmaker, and he can score goals, when he's on his game. And I think a change of scenery would really help out Jesse. And hey, why not to the Winnipeg Jets? If the price is super low, why not take a flyer? That's a guy that could end up really being a difference maker in the playoffs. We've seen that countless times where, a guy that maybe gets traded for a 5th ends up being one of the best players in the playoffs. So we'll see what goes on with Jesse Puljujarvi, but I do think that he is a really fun player that is really low risk and could be insanely high rewards for the Winnipeg Jets. And we're going to make just a little specialty note here. I do think that the Jets are going to at least look at the defense market, maybe add a guy, a veteran, or maybe just, a guy that can eat minutes. I do think they are going to look for maybe a third pairing-esque guy, or a guy that can maybe jump into the top 4 at times if somebody needs to take a break or somebody's hurt. However, I really don't see them prioritizing that at the moment. A guy that really intrigues me is Mikko Mikkola from the St. Louis Blues. Lots of Blues guys on this list. O'Reilly, Buchnevich, and now Mikkola, but he's a big guy, strong skater, brings offense, and is pretty decent defensively, I'd say, from what I've seen from him this year anyway. But he's a guy that's intrigued me. I'm not sure what the price on him would be. I'd imagine it would be a little bit more than the Jets are willing to pay. However, fun player there, and just a note that I do think that if the Jets can, they should upgrade their defense, but right now the priority should be at forward. But with all that said, guys, I am going to hop on out of here. Let me know down in the comments below who you want the Jets to acquire, and if anybody on this list was on your list. So let me know down below. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are very close to 1K, so thank you all for watching. Have a great day, everyone. Go Jets go. Bye-bye.